Hey everyone, welcome back to JP's Budget Collecting and our weekly look back at the hot comics from 6 months ago. This week we're looking back at the hot comics from June 21st, 2024, and I'm recording this on Friday, December 20th, 2024. So a early Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays to everyone out there. I hope you have a wonderful holiday season. If you're new to the channel, this is the video where we look back at the hot comics from 6 months ago and determine how they're doing in the market now. We look back at the CBSI Hot Top 10 and the Comic Town Key Collector Hottest Trending Comics of the Week. Each week they put out a list of 10 books that are moving in the market with high numbers of sales, jumping in value. And then we come back now 6 months later and see how they're doing now, what factors affected them then versus what factors are affecting them now. Would you have been better off being patient, or would you have been better off diving in the moment? If you've been watching, we've been doing this video, next month will be 6 years. And if you've been watching this video for any length of time, you know, for the most part, it's better to be patient, but not always. One little channel announcement real quick, and that is that I now have memberships. I have 3 tiers, and if you are a Titan or Nightwing tier member, you actually will get to see this video early. So with that, we're going to dig in and see what we can learn from this week's list. First up, we have Predator #1 and this is on the list for the second week in a row. And this was when we first got an announcement that a new Predator movie was coming from the director that was doing that did Prey. This was what added it here was we got news that Elle Fanning was attached to the movie. Since then, we've got news that there's actually going to be 2 Predator movies next year, both from that same guy. So apparently there's going to be a lot of Predator in 2025. Back then, raw copies were going for $80 to $90. 9.8's going for $400 to $600. Now raw copies are $20 to $70. 9.8's going for $400 to $465. So just slightly down. The raw copies are definitely down a little bit. The 9.8s are just on the low end of what they were back then. So overall, we'll call this a down, and I'll be back. Despite continued news related to Predator, the book has taken a slight step back toward where it normally sits. Still up a little bit from kind of the long-term average, but closer to what it just normally kind of is. Next, we have The Boys Herogasm #1 from 2009. This is the first appearance of Soldier Boy, also on the list for the second week in a row. In this case, there wasn't really a big difference in value from last week to this week. It was more of just opposite lists. Raw copies $20 to $30 back then. 9.8 $77, which was super cheap for a 9.8 compared to where it had been previously. Now with season 4 of The Boys coming on, it's a $5 to $30 book. 9.8s though are up $140 to $160, so we'll call this up and worth it. You could call straight cash. I feel like the 9.8s just kind of like people realize how low they'd gotten, and now they're just being sustained at a higher level that's probably more realistic to where this book's going to sit. But never know. If we move away from The Boys completely, I think we got one more season. This book may eventually creep back down to that $77 value. But for now, up and worth it at the very least. Next, we have The Boys #1. Also, because season 4 was coming out, raw copies back then $100, 9.8 $321. So quite a bit better than the Soldier Boy first appearance. But still kind of down from where it had been during previous seasons of The Boys. Now it's a $70 to $100 book raw, 9.8 $280 to $350. This one you probably, I put down and I'll be back here. As I look at this, maybe I should have put steady, I'll be back. Slight step back for this book as we've moved away from season 4. And I would guess, this is going to be closer to where this book sets. Longer term, I think, like I said, we're getting one more season. I don't look for this book to probably just slowly creep down after that last season comes out. Next, we have Get Jiro #1, and this is actually a hardcover graphic novel. And this was hitting the list because we're getting an animated show that's supposed to be on Adult Swim. Now, this only ever came out as a graphic novel. It was never single issues, and obviously, so the hardcover first print was what people were going for, and it was still only going like $15 back then. This Anthony Bourdain property was hitting the list because people were interested. Now it's a $15 to $30 book, so we'll call this up and worth it. So people are still chasing that hardcover for a little bit more than what it actually listed at, but yeah, Story I don't know much about, but it's definitely one that people have some interest in. We'll see what it becomes as an animated series. Next, we have another book on the list the second week in a row. We have G.I. Joe and the Transformers #1 from 1986. And this was supposedly a writer. There had been movie rumors about a crossover movie for a while, and then supposedly we had a writer attached, which was what was causing it to hit the list at this particular time. $15 to $30 for raw copies, 9.8, 2 to 210. Now it's a $5 to $15 book, 9.8, 85 to 185. So down in a trap for sure on this one. Whether we get a movie or not, the movies have not done well recently for either of these projects compared to what they used to do. But we do have the ongoing Energon universe that is very popular at the moment and is doing pretty well that combines these two universes. So I guess this book is going to continue to have some value just because of the Energon universe, but I wouldn't bet on the movie doing much with this book. Next, we got a couple of covers. First up, we have Remote Space #1. This is the Ryan Ottley 1 in 10 for this series. It was going for 15 to 25, so around double ratio. No recent sales on this one, though. Asking price is 10 to 20, and nobody's interested in paying it, so we're going to call this down in a trap. No reason to have chased this Ryan Ottley 1 in 10 for Remote Space back then. Next, we have Uncle Scrooge and the Infinity Dime #1. This J. Scott Campbell 1 in 50. Not a sexy girl J. Scott Campbell, but an Uncle Scrooge J. Scott Campbell. And it was going for 60 to 80, which is just slightly above ratio, which screams trap. In this case, actually ended up screaming dumpster fire. This is now a $20 to $40 book. 9.8 did go for 180. A couple of sales right around 180, but raw copies are about a $30 book compared to like a $70 book back then. So yeah, dumpster fire on this particular one. Still kind of a fun Uncle Scrooge cover, but yeah, definitely. When it's just barely above ratio, it's not really that hot. Just going to tell you. Next, we have a little bit of cover and buzz. We have Spider-Woman #7, the second print, Peach Momoko 1 in 25, first appearance of the Assembly. We've been over this book a couple of different times. This first time the second print has come up. We've had the regular cover and the Peach Momoko trade dress variant on the first print come on this list. We got the Virgin here on the second print. 95 to 115 right out the gate for the first Assembly, and so it's both the cover and the Assembly appearance. The Assembly is basically becoming the new Champions group. I think that series is supposed to start right after the first of the year if it hasn't already. But anyway, this was going for 95 to 115 back then on a 1 in 25, so right around 4 times ratio, which is really, really, really good for 1 in 25, but now it's a $50 to $80 book, so between double and triple. Also still really good for a book for a new ratio cover. 9.8, so only 150. So down in the trap on this. Borderline dumpster fire, but definitely still kind of in the trap range. So definitely backed up, but still doing pretty well, all things considered, if you got in on this at cover price originally. Next, we have Department of Truth #1. This was hitting the list because the series was returning after a pretty long hiatus. Raw copies were going for $15, 9.8, 75, and if you know the heights this book once reached, that was super cheap back then. Now it is cheaper. It is a $5 to $18 book raw. 9.8, 10 to 70. I kid you not, there was a $10 sale plus shipping, so technically it's more like 25 for that 9.8, but yeah, it sold for $10. 9.8 sold for $10 plus shipping. So that person did not get their money back for getting it graded. Down in the trap on this one, because most of the 9.8 sales are more like 50, 60, but there was a $10 one. All right, next we got a couple of DC movie books. We have Booster Gold #1, first appearance of Booster Gold, and I say DC movie, but really DC TV show in this case. There was rumors that James Gunn's going to do something with Booster Gold, and we did just yesterday get the trailer for his first. Well, I guess his first DC project has been coming out and getting pretty good reviews in Creature Commandos. And then his first movie with Superman hit the trailer this week. So people have been specking on Booster Gold. He just seems like the type of character James Gunn would love. $90 back then for raw copies. 9.8, 250. Now it's a $20 to $80 book raw, 9.8, 225 to 250. So we'll call it down and I'll be back. Still going pretty close to what it was before. Still a pretty good book and a fun character that you can get fairly affordable. Next, we have Infinite Crisis number 5. First Jaime Reyes as Blue Beetle. And this was hitting the list because rumors of an animated series were coming under the new James Gunn umbrella. Obviously, we've already gotten a movie with this character that was actually pretty well received for one of the later DC movies. And it ultimately didn't ever move or change the value of this book. But back then, this animated series announcement was making a $10 to $35 book, 9.8 to 120 to 150. Now it's a $5 to $25 book, 9.8 to 110 to 150. And this is kind of where this book just sets. I call it a steady and I'll be back. It didn't jump a huge amount with the animated series announcement, and it didn't. It's kind of just returned basically to what it is. I will say on this book, I don't know what there's a huge ceiling for this, even if the animated series is a hit. There might be as it comes out, but yeah, this seems to be what this character is worth at this point. Next, we have some MCU stuff, and basically, first up, we had Marvel Spotlight number 5, first appearance of Ghost Rider, and we had Ryan Gosling rumors about this book, about this character, which was causing it to hit the list. I think these since have been dispelled, but maybe not. 150 to 1650 for raw copies back then. The 9.0 went for 5,300. Now raw copies 5 to 1,000. So a little tighter window right within where it was going before. Wasn't as low a grade of sale, wasn't as high a grade of raw sale recently. So take that for what it's worth. So pretty steady there on the raw side. 9.2, 6,800. And you're like, well, no recent 9.0s to compare that 5,300 sale, but I can tell you 9.2 went for 68 and 8.5 went for 38. So that 53 is probably pretty steady on the 9.0. So we're going to call it steady and worth it on this particular book. Great Bronze Age Marvel key. That ultimately I wouldn't buy because of movie rumors. I would buy because you want the book and you're looking for a great deal. Next, we have Spider-Man Deadpool number 1, hitting the list because Sean Levy, who was working on the Deadpool movie, was like, hey, this would be a fun movie to make. That's it. That was why it hit the list. He was being interviewed and he was like, yeah, it'd be fun to do a Deadpool Spider-Man team up. Not that they were, nothing like that, but just that he mentioned that it would be fun, which, yeah, I would think it would be fun. Raw copies back then, 15, 9.8, 1 to 160. I call this a trap, and it's maybe more of an I'll be back, but 10 to 30 on the raw copies. So raw copies actually still going in that same range, if not a little better, but 9.8, 55 to 90, definitely down and a trap on that side. So overall, we'll just say down and I'll be back. No reason to chase this book in the moment. A fun team up book, but not really a book that's going to bring a big, huge value long term. Next, we had Deadpool Kills the Marvel Universe, number 1. And this book had been on the list multiple times over the years. And basically, it was because people thought that was going to be the storyline for Deadpool Wolverine. It was not. But raw copies were going for 20, 9.8 going for 168. And the book is basically still going right there. 15 to 30, 9.8, 125 to 200. So even though it didn't pan out in terms of a storyline, it was enough that people have continued to, people like this book enough that it stayed kind of in this value, and this appears to be just kind of what the value of this book is at this point. Next, we have New Mutants, number 98, first appearance of Deadpool. Obviously, this was all happening, the Deadpool stuff was all happening because the trailer had come out for the movie, and so the previous week, so Deadpool was on the front, and then there was a rumor about the Spidey stuff, so yeah. Anyway, New Mutants 98, first appearance of Deadpool. Raw copies 150 to 450 back then, 9.8, 1500, both of which were up a little bit. Well, the 9.8 especially was up quite a bit. Raw copies, that's kind of where those books sets. Now raw copies are 80 to 500, so you can see pretty much still in that same range. 9.8 though, 850 to 1,000, which is more like the long-term range and value on this book. So it's already lost a third of that value it picked up at the trailer here just less than 6 months after the movie came out. So overall, we'll call this down and I'll be back. Down and I'll be back. I looked at the wrong line. I got confused for a second. But yeah, so this book, great key. No reason to ever buy it around a movie. I would say over the next few months, you might be able to find some deals on this book now that we've moved away from the movie. Next, we have Lady Deadpool, #1, the first solo title and one shot for Lady Deadpool. And we got a glimpse of her in the trailer. Obviously, she played a very small role in the movie, but people were jumping all over this. This is when people still thought it was going to be Taylor and all that kind of stuff. $40 to $80 for this first Lady Deadpool solo. Back then, now it's a $15 to $35 book. So a trap, getting borderline into the dumpster fire range for sure on this. And I would be surprised if it's not another 6 months, it's not consistently a $10 to $20 book instead of this $15 to $35. So definitely a book that has come plummeting back down since the movie came out. Next, we have Deadpool, Merc with a Mouth, #7, the second print of the first appearance of Lady Deadpool. These are pretty low print, so they were pretty hard to find. They were going for pretty good value back then. $150 for Raws, 9.8, $550. Now it's an $80 to $100 book for Raw, so that's not as huge a drop as you might expect. But 9.8 went from $550 down to $155. Only one sale there. That's a dumpster fire on the 9.8, but since it's just the one sale, we'll stick to the Raw side and just say trap on this book. But yeah, definitely a huge backup for this first appearance of the second print of the first appearance of Lady Deadpool. And then next we have Deadpool, Merc with a Mouth, #7, the third print of her first appearance. $135 to $250 back then, 9.8, $1,000. Now only one recent Raw sale, $45. Two recent 9.8 sales, $330 and $500. That's a dumpster fire. No reason to chase this book and pay the crazy prices for it. No matter how rare it is, this book has come crashing down since the movie. Not a big surprise. These kind of things, once the news is out there, you can't spec. You're the speccy, not the speculator at that point, and that's what's happened with these books. So I want to thank you guys for watching. I mentioned at the beginning of the video that I now have members. We'll do a member shout out, then we'll do our usual slide at the end of what happened, and then we will do our little outro thing. So, but I want to thank you guys for watching, and hope you have a happy holidays, and we'll catch you next time. Later.